From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, let's take a look at the latest headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hold key bilateral talks in Moscow, focusing on expanding trade and economic ties between the two countries. The European Union freezes $32 million in military aid to Georgia as relations deteriorate over Tbilisi's controversial foreign agents law. A North Korean elite military training delegation visits Russia in the first military exchange between the two countries since their leaders pledged closer cooperation. Argentine President Javier Milei signs a long-delayed pact with provincial governors outlining broader economic reforms. And Tropical Storm Beryl brings strong winds and heavy rain to southeast Texas, killing at least 3, flooding highways, and leaving over 2.7 million homes and businesses without power. We begin with the 75th gathering of NATO. Leaders of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization have gathered here in Washington, D.C. for the 3-day summit starting today. The meeting of the military alliance aims at showing resolve against Russia and support for Ukraine. NATO leaders are expected to announce details of a hard-fought aid package that will provide crucial air defense systems to protect Ukrainian cities. The 42-member alliance is expected to pledge at least 4 additional Patriot missile batteries to Ukraine as well. And the new military package is likely to include a joint commitment from NATO nations to spend at least $43 billion in 2025 on aid to Ukraine. The package put forward by NATO members has been presented as historic and is seen as an attempt to future-proof continued aid to Ukraine. But the NATO aid package may not fully satisfy Ukraine. This is because the country is facing unprecedented Russian attacks. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky left for the NATO Summit, Russia's Vladimir Putin unleashed terror on Ukrainian cities. In fact, just Monday, Russia rained down a barrage of missiles at Ukrainian cities in broad daylight, leaving at least 41 people dead and over 150 injured. The airstrikes were the deadliest in recent months. Over 100 buildings were damaged across several cities. And Russian forces blasted the main children's hospital in Kyiv, where parents were holding babies were seen walking in panic in the streets outside the hospital.
My wife has come here. She drove here. Then it all started. My son began crying, so she did not go to the hospital. She ran to the bomb shelter instead. Then there was the explosion. The car is no more, but we are all okay. There was not enough time for the baby to get scared. But you see what's going on here. No words, even swear words, can describe it.
There are people under the rubble. There may be children among them. Yes, it is one of the worst. Just look at the children's hospital. There is no further comment.
The UN Security Council has called for an emergency meeting over the attack on Kyiv's children's hospital. Ukraine has declared a day of mourning for one of the worst air attacks of the war. And President Zelensky has vowed retaliation and called on Kyiv's allies to provide a firm response to Monday's attack. Ukraine says the attack demonstrates that it urgently needs an upgrade of its air defenses.
Beyond any doubt, we are going to rebuild everything that these terrorists have destroyed.
And beyond any doubt, we are going to answer these savages from Russia. Everybody that was injured will get all necessary help, and we pledge to work on bringing Russia to justice for the terror, and Russian President Vladimir Putin for his orders to carry out these strikes.
Meanwhile, as 32 NATO leaders gathered in Washington, Vladimir Putin hosted Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Moscow. In a direct appeal regarding the war in Ukraine, Prime Minister Modi told Putin that no solution can be found on the battlefield. The Indian Prime Minister reiterated the dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward and said that territorial integrity must be respected. However, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called Modi's visit to Moscow a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts. And now moving to the Middle East, Hamas has accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of creating obstacles in negotiations on a ceasefire in Gaza. The Palestinian group says it is demonstrating flexibility to reach a truce, but Israel is escalating aggression against its people. These allegations come as Israel launched several airstrikes on schools in Gaza, killing at least 20 people and injuring 75 others. Now, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, the schools were sheltering thousands of displaced people in central Gaza. However, Israel says the school complexes are being used as a terrorist hideout and weapons manufacturing facility by Hamas and Islamic Jihad. The United Nations, which runs one of the schools, has called Israel's claims very, very serious. Meanwhile, patients and staff fled 2 hospitals in Gaza after the Israeli military ordered another mass evacuation. The World Health Organization says there's no safe corner left in Gaza City.
If my house key becomes just a memory with me moving forward, then I don't want to live anymore. I must return to my house. I want to stay in Gaza and settle in Gaza with my children in our house.
Now on Monday, officials from Israel, Egypt, and the United States met in Cairo to discuss a truce deal after months of fruitless negotiations. The U.S. team was led by White House Middle East Coordinator Brett McGurk and CIA Director William Burns, while Shin Bet Chief Ronan Bar led the Israeli delegation and Intel Chief Abbas Kamel headed the Egyptian team. Washington says it's working very hard to reach an agreement, but some gaps still remain between Israel and Hamas.
Look, we've been working this very, very hard, and there are still some gaps that remain in the two sides and the positions. But we wouldn't have sent a team over there if we didn't think that we had a shot here, and we're going to take every shot we can to see if we can't get this ceasefire deal in place.
Now, over the weekend, Hamas accepted a key part of a U.S.-backed proposal, dropping a demand that Israel commit up front to a complete end to the 9-month war. The apparent compromise by Hamas could deliver the first pause in fighting and set the stage for further talks with Israel. Meanwhile, Netanyahu has said that the ceasefire deal must allow Israel to resume fighting until its objectives are met in Gaza. And back in the United States, President Joe Biden has once again insisted that he will not quit the presidential race. Appearing on a cable news show, the 81-year-old dared Democratic critics to either back him against former President Donald Trump or challenge him at the party convention in Chicago next month. President Biden said, quote, "I'm getting so frustrated by the elites in the party who know so much more. If any of these guys don't think I should run against me. Go ahead, announce for president, challenge me at the convention," end quote. The president reiterated the same in a letter to congressional Democrats, saying he is firmly committed to running the presidential race to the end. Now, pressure has been mounting on President Biden to drop out of the race after that disastrous debate performance against Donald Trump last month. On Sunday, Congressman Adam Smith became the 6th Democratic lawmaker to publicly say President Biden should step aside for a younger nominee. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, who has been very quiet since the debate, has predicted that President Biden will in fact stay in the race because of his ego. The presumptive Republican nominee says he also expects Vice President Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee if Biden does choose to step aside. Now, Donald Trump's comments came as questions arose about whether President Biden has been tested for Parkinson's or other age-related illnesses. While President Biden did not provide an answer himself, his press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, in a heated exchange with reporters at the White House, said the president does not have Parkinson's disease.
The president, I can tell you, has seen a neurologist 3 times, as it's connected to a physical that he gets every year that we provide to all of you.
That's a very basic, direct question.
Wait, hold on, wait.
8 times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
Not what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Hold on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth and be in this aggressive way. I can tell you this, just going back to Parkinson's for a little bit, so to give you some answers here. Has the president been treated for Parkinson's? No. Is he being treated for Parkinson's? No, he's not. Is he taking medication for Parkinson's? No. So those are the things that I can give you full-blown answers on, but I'm not going to confirm a specialist, any specialist that comes to the White House out of privacy.
And talking about President Biden's debate performance, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said that it is not reflective of how the commander-in-chief is in reality.
What I can tell you is, what I saw in that debate is not reflective of the man and the leader and the commander-in-chief that I have spent many, many hours with over the last 2.5 years. I have not seen any reason whatsoever to question or doubt his lucidity, his grasp of context, his probing nature, and the degree to which he is completely in charge of facts and figures.
Now, the president's physician did in fact release a letter on Monday saying President Biden was examined by a neurologist, but only as part of his annual physical examinations. And in a new twist, a Bloomberg Morning Consult poll conducted in the aftermath of the debate shows Biden leading Trump in 2 battleground states and closing the gap in 3 others. Yet it remains unclear if this new polling data is enough to calm weary Democrats and assist the embattled president with unifying a fractured party as it looks to its nominating convention just next month. And from the United States, we shift focus to Canada, where a worrying trend has put authorities on alert. Canada is battling an epidemic, which is being dubbed as a national crisis. But no, it's not another virus, but car theft. Reports indicate a vehicle is stolen every 6 minutes in Canada. And if that's not alarming enough, the report also adds that these stolen vehicles are serving as currency for international criminal networks linked to drug and human trafficking and terrorism. Here's our report with the latest.
Casually walking up the street late at night, a security camera captured a masked and hooded suspect approaching a car parked outside a house. He peered around the corner before walking up to the driver's side, carrying tools and wearing gloves. Within a matter of few minutes, he broke the car locks and drove it away. A criminal trend is sweeping across Canada, with auto theft becoming a growing menace. Thieves are targeting locals and diplomats alike, leaving no one immune to their criminal antics. The Insurance Bureau of Canada has labelled the situation a national crisis, making vehicle ownership a burdensome challenge. The federal government estimates nearly 90,000 cars are stolen each year, that is 1 car every 6 minutes. Canadians have been scrambling to come up with solutions on their own, including using tracking devices. But thieves have figured out a way to ensure that no one is on their trail before moving a stolen vehicle. These stolen vehicles are then resold for parts or used to commit other crimes. The Insurance Bureau of Canada estimates in 2022, these thefts resulted in $1.2 billion in insurance claims, which is more than 3 times what was paid out in 2018. Among the victims that year was Canada's Federal Justice Minister, whose government-issued car was stolen twice by thieves. To address the issue, the federal government held a national summit in Ottawa in February that featured representatives from provincial governments, insurers and automakers. And as a result of the summit, at least $121 million were announced to combat gang violence, including auto theft. and over $28 million were announced to increase the capacity of the Canada Border Services Agency to conduct more investigations and enhance intelligence sharing. Auto theft in Canada has been witnessing a spike for the past few years, but accelerated during the pandemic. So according to estimates, vehicle theft soared in 2022. Both in Quebec and Ontario, seeing spikes of around 50%, while Atlantic Canada saw an increase of more than 34%. While it is impossible to know what criminals do with all the stolen cars and difficult to track shifting trends, police estimate that nearly one-third of stolen vehicles are being resold in Canada, marking a significant increase from just 6 months ago when the vast majority of vehicles were believed to have been exported. And often, buyers have no idea that they are being sold stolen vehicles. Adding to Canada's attractiveness for smugglers, cars have become a lucrative business for crime rings in recent years. Interpol has labelled Canada as one of the world's main source countries for stolen vehicles, feeding a global black market that law enforcement officials say is funding international organized crime groups.
And finally, we move to creepy crawlers. Singapore has taken a leap into the culinary future by adding insects to its food menus. The Singapore Food Agency, or the SFA, has approved a list of insects that can now be incorporated into food menus across the country. This includes silkworms, locusts, beetle grubs, grasshoppers, crickets, and honeybees. Now these tiny critters are set to make a big splash on the local food scene. Our final story takes you inside a culinary adventure.
The elite club of gourmet food has a new member, and they're none other than edible insects. The world's menus are now teeming with dishes made of creepy crawlies. From grasshopper tacos to insect ramen bowls, from love bug salads to black ant guacamole. You name it, and chefs have already whipped it up. And now Singapore has hopped on the buggy bandwagon. The Singapore Food Agency, or SFA, has given a green light to a list of insects that can now be consumed in the country. This list is crawling with names like silkworms, locusts, beetle grub, grasshoppers, crickets, and honeybees. Each of these critters has been assessed and deemed to be of low regulatory concern, so no need to worry about a surprise side of insects. This approval has sparked a wave of joy, or perhaps a flutter of wings, among Singapore's food industry. Restaurants can't wait to serve up insect delicacies. Some are even planning to introduce insect powder into their dishes and protein bars. Ambitious chefs are buzzing about full-fledged insect menus, believing it will offer customers more choices. Business owners are also buzzing with excitement, anticipating a 30% increase in sales thanks to these new offerings. But hold on to your hats or nets in this case. SFA's announcement doesn't mean that any and every bug will land on a customer's plate. The organization has set strict guidelines for the import of insects. It requires proof that they have been farmed in regulated establishments and not picked from the wild. If certain insects are not on the approved list, they will need to be evaluated first. Companies selling insect-based products must properly label their packages, and these products will be subjected to rigorous food safety testing. Failing to meet SFA standards will result in these products being banned from sale. Insects are being hailed as the new superfood. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, insects are a sustainable alternative to meat. They are high in protein, rich in antioxidants.
It's much more healthier than eating red meat, for instance. In insect protein, you have all the good stuff without the bad stuff. Okay, that's the only thing that it's a challenge. It's only in our mind. It's only the psychological barrier. That's it.
And produce lower greenhouse gas emissions when farmed.
It takes a fraction of the resources to grow a pound of crickets as it does a pound of beef. And so the amount of water it takes, the greenhouse gas emissions that it emits compared to the livestock, the amount of land that's required, the amount of feed that's required, there are so many factors that just lead to, this is kind of smart.
So if you're feeling adventurous, why not try a cricket cookie or a locust lollipop? Who knows, the next big food trend might just be buzzing right under our nose, as the future of fine dining is just a hop, skip, and a crunch away.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we